For me, Argentina. I'm going to spare you the agony. I'm sorry. We're on. Oh, sorry, we're live. Hello. Welcome, everybody. Good evening to a muggy church again, right? We got to. Huh? No, it's not working again. We're at 80 degrees again in here, so we've got to try and get it sorted out. So anyway, good evening. I'm glad to be back, maybe, or maybe not. I enjoyed the break. Glad I'm back. I enjoyed driving around and visiting and just being in places and being on my own. It was just nice just to have the break from everything. But some people well, I'll be quiet because I'm on camera. So we're going back to where we left off. So we're at Philippians 4, right? So last week we went through verses 4 to 7, right? We talked about those three most famous verses. Probably rejoice in the Lord always. Do not be anxious about anything. The peace of God will guard your hearts and minds. And hopefully we heard them the way that Paul wrote them, right? And the way that they were supposed to be heard, rather than how we coffee mug it and we do other things with them, right? So, joy anchored to the Lord, not in circumstances, right? Prayer is a replacement for worry, not just willpower. Peace as a garrison standing guard, not just a warm, fuzzy feeling that we have inside ourselves. So tonight we're going to step into verses 8 through 9, and they're very two short verses, but in there, I want you to know what's going on. So last week it was told us about the peace of God that will guard our minds. This week it's going to tell us what to do with the minds he is guarding. So a question before we start. Let me ask some things, right? What have you fed your mind this week? What have you fed your mind this week? I don't mean what have you eaten. I mean what have you, what have you watched? In terms of TV and streaming? What have you scrolled through your social media? What have you listened to? Maybe it's podcasts and music or radio. What conversations have you replayed over and over in your head at night? Right. What worries have you rehearsed? Those anxiety loops that we have sometimes. Maybe what images, I mean, I hope nobody in here, but what images have you been looking at? In terms of comparison, envy, bad stuff that we shouldn't even be looking at, right? And what videos have you clicked on? Those algorithm-driven comparisons that we like to look at. Because whatever the answer of that to that is, this is what has been forming within you for this week. Not the sermon for the Sunday, not the 20 minutes of Bible reading, but not the quick prayer before bed that we sometimes do, but it's that steady drip, what comes into your mind hour after hour, day after day, week after week. That is going to be doing more work on you than anything else. I want to let you know right now that steady drip is not accidental. You understand this? You've got to understand some dynamics, right? Because someone is choosing what you see and what you hear, right? The algorithm is choosing for you on some of the social media platform. The platform itself is choosing for you. The advertiser is choosing for you. And I want you to know they are always listening, right? They are always listening. Even when they say they're not listening, I have proven it many, many times. Done deliberate experiments, right, of having a phone next to me and just mentioning a random thing recently, I wonder what it'd be like to have one of these, and I kid you not, within 2 days they're in my feed. Even when I turn everything off, right, they are always listening. I don't care what they say. And in this choosing that they're doing for you, they're not choosing what is best for you either, right? They are choosing what keeps you watching. I don't know if you know, there was a Netflix documentary called The Social Dilemma. I think it was from back in 2020. Did anybody see it? No? I would recommend seeing it at some point. It's an interview with a bunch of people who actually built the social media tools and the social media platforms that we use every day. And they say in that documentary some things that are very chilling. They say that the apps were designed on the same principles that make slot machines addictive. They designed them to hijack your attention, to pull you in, to keep you scrolling. And some of them said they will not even let their own children use those apps because they know how addictive they are. That's a very telling statement right there. I want you to think about that for a second. The people who built it won't let their kids use it, but yet they want to push it on us. It's scary how many, scary how many children I know that just, all they're doing is their heads are stuck here, and they're doing this. My 5-year-old grandson, that's all he does, right? At 5. And it's not just social media that's the problem either. Think about how much of what we consume is designed to keep us numb, to keep us entertained, to keep our minds full of noise, so we never look at what actually matters for us. Anybody seen The Hunger Games? Yeah. Okay. So you know the picture. The capital keeps what? The people fed and entertained. So they never what? Notice the social injustice around them. It's a form of numbiness. Right? This is not just a movie plot. This is the world we're living in today. You understand? And that's no different than in the Roman times either, right? What did they have? They had the Colosseum, and they had the games, they had the gladiators, and they had lions mauling Christians, all for what? Entertainment, to keep the people silent. We are being fed things, right, that keeps our mind from the higher things. That is what society is doing to us today. And I think this is the part that really should wake us up. What you consume during the day does not stop working on you when you close your eyes. When you lay down at night, you put your phone on the nightstand or something, right? And you close your eyes, and guess what happens next? Your brain gets to work. For the next 8 hours, you are going to marinate on what it is that you've been marinating on all day. It's going to be processing what you have fed it. So the news that you doom scroll, that's why I don't watch news anymore. The show that you binged, the arguments that you replayed over in your head, those images that stay in your head, your mind will literally ruminate on that while you sleep. That's nothing to do with spiritual poetry. That's how the mind works. You understand? That's how it works. So whatever you gave it during the day, you are chewing on it all night. Which means what you feed your mind isn't just shaping your day, it's shaping the 8 hours you thought you were resting. And then it starts again in the morning. So tonight, Paul is going to tell us something about that, right? Because he knows about that. It's not, he didn't have the scrolling, obviously, but he knows, right? So in verse 8, we're going to read that verse. And now, dear brothers and sisters, one final thing. Fix your thoughts on what is true and honorable and right and pure and lovely and admirable. Think about things that are excellent and worthy of praise. Now here's the coffee mug version of that verse. Always look on the bright side of life. Do you know that song? Anybody know Monty Python? Always look on the bright side of life. Don't dwell on the negative. Fill your mind with happy things, right? That's how we usually hear that. But here's what I want to say, that Paul that is not what Paul is telling us. This is not a verse about positive thinking. This is a verse about mental discipline. So the actual word that Paul looks at for this, is for think about, it's the Greek word, it's logizeste, or something like that, right? Just take my word, that's the pronunciation, right? So it doesn't mean daydream. It doesn't mean muse over. It doesn't mean have happy thoughts about it. He literally says, and it's an accounting word, so Mike will be very happy about this. It means to calculate, to reason, to put it on the ledger. So what Paul is actually telling us here is that make a running account in your mind. What gets counted, what gets rejected, what you dwell on, what you turn away from, this is active, this is ongoing, this is a discipline. And for some reason, we don't like the word discipline, do we? We have negative thoughts about it. So Paul isn't asking us to have happy thoughts. He's asking us to decide what gets counted in our life. Now look at the 8 things he tells us to count. True, honorable, right, pure. Did I miss one? Lovely, admirable, excellent, worthy of praise. 8 qualities, 8 filters. So let me walk through those kind of quickly. So true, what is actually real. Not what you fear might be real. There's a difference. What is real? Not what someone told you is real, but something that is actually true. Honorable. Honorable, what is worthy of respect? What carries weight? What has dignity? Then we look at the word right. So what is just? What is fair? What lines up with what God has said? Pure. Pure, it's like what is not mixed. So what is not corrupted? In other words, what is clean? Lovely. What draws affection? What makes you love the good? What is beautiful in the deeper sense? Now, do you say this word is admirable or admirable? Okay, I'll say admirable then, because that's what the English version is. Yes, that's exactly it, man. It's 1 John always, right? Admirable. What is worth talking about? What builds up? What would you be glad to have someone hear? Here? I can't even say that word properly now. So, excellent. What is of the highest quality? What deserves your attention? What is worth your time? And praiseworthy or worthy of praise. What deserves to be celebrated? What honors God? What would you tell someone about with joy? So now if you take that list, right, and you apply it to what fed your mind this week, was it true or was it half true? But I'm also going to say something here that I'm going to tell you something that a half truth is still a whole lie, by the way, right? Was it honorable or was it degrading? Was it lovely or was it just entertaining? Was it worthy of praise or was it worthy of being forgotten? Because Paul is not given these 8 qualities here as a nice list. He's given these as a set of gates that everything that comes into your mind has to pass through them, or it doesn't get counted. So now I want you to see something as well, which is a connection to last week. Last week we talked about the peace of God as a garrison around our mind, right? Or around our heart. This week Paul tells us you still have to choose what enters the city. So you may have a garrison, right, guarding your mind and your hearts, but you still have the ability to let in whoever you want. It's important to understand this. See, the garrison protects, but the gates are still yours. You still decide who and what you will open the gate to. See, peace guards, the mind chooses. Both of these matter, right? A peace of God that stands guard while you invite in everything that you could that will tear you apart isn't doing the job that Paul is describing here. See, the peace guards what you have decided to build, but you're letting things in that don't necessarily need to be there. And that's scary. So verse 9, let's go there, sir. Keep putting into practice all you learned and received from me, everything you heard from me and saw me doing, then the God of peace will be with you. So Paul does something very interesting. He points back to himself. Keep putting into practice all you learned and received from me. Okay? That can sound a bit strange at first. Is Paul being arrogant? Is he telling them to worship him? No, not at all. He is telling them how discipleship actually works. Because here's the truth. Everyone is imitating someone, somewhere. Right? So look at how Paul says it. What you have learned from me, what you have received from me, what you have heard from me, what you have saw me doing. There are 4 ways of saying the same thing. Watch me, right? Then do what I did. That's it. That's Paul's model. Now, here is what I want you to feel. You have been imitating someone all week. You may not know it, but you have, right? Somewhere. Maybe someone on TV, maybe someone on your phone, maybe it's someone in your family, someone at work, maybe someone in your past, right? Because this is how humans learn. We watch, we absorb, and then we copy without meaning to. Huh? So you can repeat it. You got it, Mike. Paul is not saying don't imitate anyone. He is saying be careful who you imitate. Because the person that you are watching most consistently, you're going to hate this, is the person you're becoming. You are always imitating someone. The question is whether you choose them or whether they chose you. I used to say this to a lot of people. Tell me who you run with, and I will tell you who you are. Right? You run around with a lot of bad people doing lots of bad stuff. I promise you end up doing lots of bad stuff yourself, right? It's very scary, but it's very true. I have watched it time and time and time again. And some of you know that I sponsor people in recovery, and one of the things, that I say that to them all the time. When I see them and I see who they're hanging out with, I already know what's going to start to go on before long. They tell us that you have to change people, places, and things in your life, right? So this raises a hard question for us, right? Who in your life could actually say what Paul said? Who could you look at and say, watch me, then do what I did? Because if the answer is no one, that is a relationship you need to go and find. Not because you need a hero, not because you need someone perfect, but because you need someone whose life you can see and want to have the same as they have, right? See, Paul's discipleship model wasn't videos, it wasn't books, it wasn't sermons, it was life on life's terms. It was someone who sat with him, someone who walked with him, someone who watched how he handled money, for example, how he handled conflict, how he handled suffering, how he handled joy. Life on life's terms, right? Then they went and did the same thing. Years ago, when I was in recovery, seriously in recovery, and I was going to lots of meetings, we used to say this: if you want what we have, then you have to be willing to do what we do. Right? That's the same in Christian discipleship. If you want to live a Christian life, then imitate people, right, who are walking a Christian life. From the peace of God to the God of peace. This is how Paul closes. Then the God of peace will be with you. Paul just did something when he says that. 2 verses ago, he said, the peace of God would guard your hearts and minds. Now he says, the God of peace will be with you. Do you see the difference? Verse 7 was the gift. Verse 9 becomes the giver. So verse 7 is the peace of God stands guard around you. Now verse 9 is that the God of peace walks with you. That isn't a repetition, that is just a progression that has to happen. Because here's what Paul is saying. The peace of God, right, is a gift you receive. The God of peace is a person you know, right? And the way you get from the gift to the giver is through practice, through filtering what you feed through your mind, through imitating a life that's worth imitating, through daily choices, right, about what gets counted. That's the most important part of my day. When I get up, and what I'm doing is that when I get up and I'm praying and I'm having that time with God, I'm very intentional about what I'm going to do that day. Right? I'm intentional about how I try to guard my heart and my mind, but I'm also very intentional about what I let into my heart and my mind. Right? Today was the first time I watched TV for a long time, and I only watched it for one reason: the game. Right? I watched it for one reason. Yes, a soccer game, and I was on a conference call at the time the game was going on, and then somebody scored, and you heard me erupt, and they're saying, "What, Wayne? What's going on?" I said, "Never mind." They don't know me very well. I am a passionate football supporter. I was a Liverpool season ticket holder, and that should tell you something. Who lived in Manchester, and those two cities literally hate each other when it comes to football. It's a rivalry that goes back forever and ever, right? And I would walk around the city of Manchester with my Liverpool shirt on because I didn't care. They say that there's Bill Shankly, who's one of the most famous managers of Liverpool. He was asked a question. He says, "We heard that football is a game that's more important about that's about life and death." He said, "Football is a game about life and death." And Bill Shankly said, "Oh, no, it's more important than that." That's how passionate we are. Back in the World Cup, I can't remember now, I had some Americans who came over. It's when we used to drink, right? And I took them to a pub, right, when the World Cups were going on and England were playing. And he said he had never felt an atmosphere that was like it. It was raucous, it was just loud, it was just silly songs being sung to a TV, right? You'll never get an atmosphere like it. And somebody, if you like soccer, man, I would always recommend you go to England to watch a soccer game in a pub. So I was excited a bit today. Yes, it's an experience, and I was excited today. And I can't remember where I was now. So through filtering what you put in your mind, so what you feed your mind, through imitating a life worth imitating, because there are people in my life today that I look up to, that I want to have counsel with, accountability, support, right? There are people in my life, in church life and also in recovery life, that these are people who I have looked up to and said, I want to have what you want to have. Then, okay, then do what I want, do what I do. And you've got to understand that recovery is built on God's principles, right? And so there are people in my life today that I look up to. There's some of those people who are in recovery that are also in church that I look up to them. And through those daily intentional choices I make about what's going to get counted in my life, I rarely am on social media, right? The one that I've always had the most, what I've kept the most of is really Instagram, because I like to do photography, and that's my photography showcase. And so I'm on there, but I'm really not on there anymore, because that platform has changed too. It's just like doom and gloom, right? TikTok went a long time ago. Thankfully, I never got onto Snapchat or any of the other stuff. But I'm very specific and particular about what I spend my time on, right? I read a lot. I listen to a lot of music. When I go to bed at night, I've still got that Spotify playlist on very quiet, but it's still there, enough for me just to hear it, right? And at the moment, I'm on a United Pursuit kick for some reason. I don't know why. If you ever listen to United Pursuit, I recommend you to listen to them. United Pursuit. Yeah, they are ministering to my heart at the moment in a deep and meaningful way, because what Paul is not saying, though, is that do this and God will finally show up. Paul is saying, do this and you will realize he was here all along in your life. See, the peace of God guards you. The God of peace walks with you. Practice is how you learn to notice. Man, are you still warm in here? No? Good. I'm trying to get hold of Basil right now. Basil, if you're watching this on... Huh? I don't know. Maybe that's true as well, yeah. Okay, well, I'm going to find Basil and hunt him down, so I will get him by tonight. So for me, these are two short verses, but boy, he has given us a lot to look at in these verses, right? First, he told us what to feed our minds, not with positive thoughts, but literally 8 qualities, right, that are gated to filter what gets counted in our life. And second, he told us who to imitate. Not celebrities. Please don't imitate celebrities. I've seen some things recently that have just horrified me. And these are people that our children are looking up to, right? Not influencers. Boy, I've seen some crazy things on some of these social media platforms. Huh? Don't no. Are the Kardashians still a thing? I hope not. I hope not, but there's probably some other things. I can't remember, I think I was with my daughter. Oh my gosh, yeah, I was with my daughter, and I visited her when I went down a couple of weekends ago. And we had driven somewhere, I can't remember, oh yeah, we'd gone across to Alley Cats or something like that, and we're on the way back. And she was literally watching something like The Bachelor or something like that on a phone. And they were like, her and a friend, they were just like going, oh yeah, I wonder if he's going to do this or when he's going to do that. And I'm just like looking at her, I said, what's wrong with you girls? They knew everything that was happening. I said, that is your influence? Man. And don't imitate the loudest people in the room either, right? Because sometimes people use their being the loudest voice as the things that, hey, look at me, right? Instead, right, imitate someone whose life is that you can watch, someone whose walk with God that you can trace, right? That's important. And then thirdly, he told us where all of this leads, not just to the peace of God, but to the God of peace himself. And here's what I want you to feel in all of this. Chapter 4 has been given us the shape of a formed life, right? So if you remember verses 1 to 3, it's how we handle conflict. Remember that? Don't call people out in church, right? Verses 4 to 5, how we anchor our joy. And then verses 6 to 7, how we handle our worry. And then verses 8 to 9, how we handle our minds and who we follow in our lives. It's all one life, and it's all in one believer. And the fruit of it all is knowing the God of peace himself. I wouldn't swap that for the world. I wouldn't swap it for the world. It's not just being at peace for me now, right? Because I'm getting better at being at peace, or I hope I'm getting better at being at peace. But it's now I'm actually spending my time with the God of peace on a regular daily basis. I'm literally saturating my life in worship. I'm saturating my life in the Word of God. And I'm hoping that that is forming something in me that I just don't want to let go of, right? So, let me ask some of you honestly. Maybe I won't pick at people. No. I'll try not to look at people, right? Some of us have been consuming things this week. Right? Some of us have been consuming things this week that don't necessarily go through those 8 gates. Maybe when we think of some things that's not true, that's not honorable, not even pure, not worth counting. And some of us maybe are imitating someone else that we maybe would be ashamed to admit that we're watching. I'm not going to ask you to feel guilty, right? And I'm not going to even name you or point you out or anything, right? All I'm going to ask you to do is to start to see clearly. Change the filters in your glasses, right? Take the filters out or whatever it is that you've got and see more clearly. See, whatever you're allowing to feed your mind, either consciously or subconsciously, is shaping your life and will be reflected out of your life, whether you want it or not. So whoever you imitate or whatever you imitate is becoming you. I think that what Paul is trying to tell us here tonight is that you have to choose carefully what you count. Choose carefully who you follow. And if you do that, the God of peace will be with you. So, that's the end of what I've got to, but I've always got 4 questions for you. Okay? So I want you to sit with these 4 questions. You ready, Gigi? What did I feed my mind this week? And would it pass through any of Paul's 8 gates? You want me to repeat that? And would it pass through any of Paul's 8 gates? In other words, is it true? Is it pure? Is it lovely? Okay? Who am I imitating right now? Whether I choose them or not. Ready? Is there someone in my life whose walk with God I could watch? And if not, could I find one? Is there someone in my life whose walk with God I could watch? And if not, could I find one? Ready? You ready? Okay. Have I been trying to get the peace of God without seeking the God of peace? And here's what I want you to leave you with. You cannot separate what you fill your mind with from who you're becoming. I'm really grateful that the program of recovery allows me to go through what we call the step working process that allows us to allow this to be part of, because it's an inside job, right? Okay, and one of the early things is that, there was these sayings, there's this cliched, right? If you want what we have, you have to do what we want, what we are doing, right? Right? Change your people's places and playthings. I try to live a principled life. That's what the whole 12 steps has. It has spiritual principles behind them that they may not necessarily identify as godly principles, but at the end of the day, it was adapted out of AA, and AA came out of the Oxford, and it all goes to be traced back to God at the end of the day, right? They can't get away from it. And what I've done is allow those principles, hopefully, to fill in my life and live in my life, right? And I think it's been important for me that to have somebody accountable, like accountability, right? People in my life that I want, right, to work closely with and to be like. There's already some men in here in Ardmore, other pastors that I look up to and that I spend time with, right? Because that's important to me to do that. Because I'm not an island. I'm not here to, I just know that today I'm just consumed by God, right? That's all I can be. That's it. That's my life. And so what I do is I live in a space of worship in my life. I live in a space of being in His Word and allowing His Word to change my heart and my mind. And this whole weekend that I was away, I've had a lot of time of reflection and where I've been getting deep into the Word of God and finding out like what is pure and what is holy. That is what I want to be. And there are difficulties that we have in our life, but if my life is shaped by that, then when these difficulties come, then I don't have to let these difficulties be the thing that forces me into like becoming like a wavy in the wind, right? It's important for me to stand firm on the Word of God, to allow the worship to fill my heart and my spirit. And I believe that in this last 6 to 7, 8 months that God has done a deeper work within me. I hope that I live this today, right? I hope so, man. I hope this is where I want to live. This is these 2 verses here. This is it for me. I'm grateful for all y'all. Man, this is important to me, man. I'm full of gratitude. But there's some other things like these cliches. It's hard to have an attitude when you're full of gratitude. It's hard to be hateful when you're grateful. And so if I live in the space of gratitude, even in the difficulties of circumstances of life, because life is just life, I understand that today, right? I've accepted that life is life, right? So once I accept that life is difficult and life is just life, then it allows me to rise above it, to transcend it, and to understand this is just life that's coming. I don't have to react to life today. But I'm grateful for all of y'all. It will be 10:30 on Sunday, and hopefully we'll have the AC fixed by then. We will chase people down. I know where people live, so. And that's what I used to do in the olden days. Find people who didn't want to be found. But I'm not as bad as I used to be. But anyway, anybody got any questions or anything?
That's really good.
Okay.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
Okay. Right. You all look tired, by the way. You all tired and wore out? Yeah. No. I'm just looking in general right now. All right, let's pray. Heavenly Father, I'm thankful that you gave us these instructions for the minds that you were guarding. Please forgive us for what we have let through those gates that had no business being there. For the voices that we have listened to that were not worth listening to. For those that we tried to imitate that weren't worth imitating. For the peace that we have looked for without first looking for you. Father, please give us the disciplines of Paul's 8 qualities. Give us the humility to imitate a life we can see. And give us the desire, not just for your peace, but for you. Because, Father, you are the God of peace.